April 28, 1945, Marktoberdorf, Bavaria. The wooden post stood in the village square like a gravestone, splintered and blackened by fire. Tied to it was a woman in a torn Red Cross uniform, her hands bound so tightly the rope had cut into her wrists. Around her neck hung a cardboard sign, the word scrawled in thick charcoal, Veritor, Traitor. Sergeant Daniel Harris of the 12th Army's Medical Detachment stopped mid-step, his rifle half-raised, trying to make sense of what he was seeing. The square was empty except for a few chickens scratching near broken wagons. The only sound was the wind pulling at the Third Reich flag still hanging from the town hall window. The woman's chest rose in shallow breaths. She wasn't dead, but someone had wanted her to be. Before we continue, if you're captivated by untold stories of courage and humanity from World War II, hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss another chapter of history. And drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. We love hearing from our community around the world. Now, let's uncover what happened to this woman and why her act of mercy nearly cost her everything. Daniel approached slowly, boots crunching on gravel. Her eyes were open, pale gray, and unfocused. Dried blood streaked her temple. Around her neck, beneath the sign, he saw faint rope burns. Someone had tried to strangle her but hadn't finished. He scanned the square. Every door was shut. Every window shuttered. Whoever had done this wanted her to be seen. Wanted her to die slowly, publicly, as a warning. He lowered his rifle and pulled out his knife, sawing at the rope around her wrists. "It's all right," he murmured in broken German. "You're safe now." The last rope snapped. Her body collapsed forward. He caught her just before she hit the ground. She weighed almost nothing, her skin cold as river water. He wrapped his jacket around her shoulders and looked at the Red Cross armband still visible. On her sleeve, a symbol of neutrality in a war that no longer respected such things. Her lips moved. They said, "I helped them." Daniel frowned. Helped who? Her eyelids fluttered. The Americans? The words landed heavy. He stared at her trembling hands, at the dirt caked under her fingernails. She had been a nurse, probably in a field hospital, and if she had treated captured Americans, that explained everything. In the collapsing Reich, mercy was a crime. He heard boots approaching his own men rounding the corner. "Sergeant, you all right?" Private Kessler called out, rifle drawn. He stopped cold when he saw her. "What the hell happened?" Daniel stood, holding the woman upright. Locals or retreating soldiers. "Get the medic bag." Kessler hesitated. "You sure we should help her? She's wearing German colors." Daniel met his eyes. "She's a nurse. That's all I need to know." And in that moment, as he looked at this woman who had been punished for saving lives, Daniel realized something that would haunt him for the rest of the war. The line between enemy and ally had never been as clear as the uniforms suggested. The farmhouse they carried her to smelled of ash and old bread. Inside, the walls were scorched but still standing. A child's doll, missing an arm, sat on the table next to a loaf of untouched black bread fragments of normal life, crushed under history's boots. Daniel laid her on a blanket and checked her pulse, faint but steady. She stirred, her voice barely above a whisper. "They said I betrayed Germany." He leaned closer. "Why would they say that?" She swallowed hard. "Because I saved the wrong men." By 1945, Nazi Germany was in freefall. The Allies had crossed the Rhine. Soviet forces were closing on Berlin. In the chaos of retreat, old scores were being settled. Civilians accused of disloyalty, whether real or imagined, were beaten, hanged, or tied to posts in village squares as warnings. The Red Cross, once a symbol of universal protection, had become suspect. Any nurse who showed compassion to enemy prisoners risked being branded a traitor by her own people. It was a brutal paradox. The same hands that healed could be tied and condemned for refusing to let men die. Daniel didn't know her name yet, didn't know her story, but he could see the rope burns, the bruises, the exhaustion etched into every line of her face. She had been a witness to something the war tried to erase, the truth that suffering had no nationality. Lieutenant Burns arrived an hour later, dust covering his boots. Harris's report. Daniel stood, found her near the square. "Sir," bound to a post. "Sin," said Traitor. "Locals must have done it." Burns glanced at the woman, then at the Red Cross patch on her sleeve. "German, yes, sir. But she's a medic, probably from a POW hospital nearby." The lieutenant crouched beside her. "You speak English?" Her head moved slightly. "Yes. Good. Then tell me, why were your people ready to hang you?" She didn't answer at first. Her gaze drifted toward the window where late afternoon light fell across the floorboards. "Finally," she said softly, "because I forgot who the enemy was." The room went quiet. Burns stood crossing his arms. "That's a nice riddle. Care to explain?" She took a breath. "I was a nurse at the POW camp near Landsberg. We were ordered to treat only German soldiers. But I could not ignore the others, the captured ones, the Americans, the British." Her voice trembled. "I gave them medicine. I stopped the guards from beating them when I could." Burns's expression didn't change. "So you helped the enemy. I helped the wounded," she said, her tone sharpening. "Not the enemy, just men." Daniel felt something shift inside him. This woman had probably been punished for acts that would have earned him a medal. Burns sighed. "Sergeant, I don't have time for moral philosophy. Get her processed. Command will want a report." He turned to leave, but Daniel stepped forward. "Sir, with respect, she's injured. She needs rest." Burns shot him a look. "She's a German national, Harris. If she's alive, she's a responsibility. Don't get sentimental." The door slammed behind him. Anna, she had whispered her name earlier, looked at Daniel. "You shouldn't defend me. They'll think you're a fool." He managed a faint smile. "I've been called worse." That night, she told him more. Her name was Anna Ritter. She was 31. She had worked at Landsberg POW Hospital since 1943. At first, the camp had been organized, orderly. Then the transports increased. American airmen shot down over Bavaria. British paratroopers captured near Arnhem. Russian soldiers marched in from the east. The hospital overflowed. Supplies ran out. Orders came down. Prioritize German soldiers. Let the prisoners fend for themselves. Anna couldn't. She traded her own food for extra morphine, hid Red Cross parcels, and smuggled them to Allied prisoners. Once, she even helped a British officer keep a secret list of the dead, a record the SS wanted destroyed. "I didn't think I was brave," she said quietly. "I was just tired of watching people die for nothing." Daniel listened, his notebook open but untouched. He realized he wasn't just hearing a confession, he was hearing a testimony, an account of what happened when a person chose humanity over ideology. In 1945, that choice could get you killed. She told him about SS Sergeant Wagel, who caught her giving water to a French prisoner during roll call. After that, they stripped her of her nursing papers. She was sent to clean latrines. But near the end, when the camp doctors fled and prisoners were left burning with fever, she returned. She opened the storeroom, gave them the last of the penicillin. Someone saw her again. This time it was the mayor's wife. The soldiers came the next morning. They tied her to the post. The villagers watched. No one stopped them. Daniel closed his notebook. "You risked everything to do the right thing." She shook her head. "No, I just refused to forget that they were human. That's not heroism. It's memory." He didn't know what to say. For the first time, the lines between right and wrong felt blurred beyond repair. Outside, the sound of distant artillery rumbled. The war was still moving east, still grinding forward. But here, in this farmhouse, it had paused long enough for him to see what it had cost her to stay human. By sunrise, the farmhouse had turned into a makeshift headquarters. Lieutenant Burns took over the kitchen for questioning. Daniel stood near the doorway, still uneasy. Anna sat at the table, hands folded tightly in her lap. Burns set his helmet down with a clang. "Let's get this over with. Name, Anna Ritter. Age, 31. Rank or position, Kreis, Lazarette, nurse. I worked under Dr. Wilhelm Eckert at Landsberg POW Hospital." Burns nodded to Daniel, who jotted notes. "And how long were you assigned there?" "Since 1943. Did you know the hospital treated Allied prisoners of war?" She hesitated. "Yes." "And did you personally give aid to captured American soldiers?" Anna looked straight at him. "Yes. I treated wounds, infections, frostbite. I changed bandages. I gave morphine when I had any left." Burns leaned forward. "Were you ordered to do that?" "No, I was ordered not to." The silence that followed was heavy. Burns exhaled slowly. "You understand how that sounds to us. A German admitting she broke orders to save American lives. Convenient now that we're occupying your country." Her jaw tightened. "I don't care how it sounds." Daniel watched the exchange, torn between admiration and worry. Burns paced behind her chair. "You're saying you risked your life to save men you were told were enemies. Why?" She looked down at her hands. "Because they were dying. Some were my age, some younger. I told myself I was a nurse before I was German. I thought that meant something." Burns tapped his fingers on the table. "And when your superiors found out, they sent officers from the local party branch, called me a traitor, accused me of sympathy with the enemy. I was stripped of duty." Her voice cracked. "2 days ago, soldiers came again. They said I'd given food to prisoners. They tied me to the post." The villagers watched. Her eyes glistened. No one stopped them. Daniel could see Burns trying to decide if she was telling the truth. He'd been in interrogation rooms before. He knew that look, the cold calculation of a man balancing truth against suspicion. Sergeant Burns said, "What do you think?" Daniel didn't hesitate. "Her wounds match what she says. Rope burns, bruising. She had no weapon. I believe her." Burns stared at him. "You believe a German nurse who claims she risked her life to save your countrymen?" "Yes, sir, I do." Burns sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. "You're too soft, Harris." He turned back to Anna. "You're going to write down every name you remember. Doctors, guards, officers, anyone connected to that hospital. If your story checks out, maybe command will show leniency." Anna nodded. "I will tell you everything, but I want one promise." Burns raised an eyebrow. "You're not in a position to demand anything." "I'm not asking for myself," she said quietly. "There were others, nurses, orderlies. Some helped to don't let them be hunted down. They only wanted to keep people alive." Burns didn't answer. He gathered his papers and left. When the door shut, Daniel leaned against the table. "You handled that well." Anna shook her head. "I've learned not to tremble when men shout. Fear wastes breath." By late afternoon, trouble came with the sound of voices outside. Daniel went to the window. Down the dirt road, a cluster of villagers was gathering near the square. A woman in a brown coat pointed toward the farmhouse, shouting in German. Beside her, 2 men carried shovels. Another held a rifle that looked too old to still fire. Kessler came up behind him. "What's that about?" Daniel's eyes narrowed. "They've come back?" "Back?" "The ones who tied her up." Lieutenant Burns entered. "What's going on?" "Locals," Daniel said. "Looks like they want the nurse." Burns walked to the window. "Perfect. Just what we need. A lynch mob." Outside, the voices grew angrier. A middle-aged man stepped forward, waving a piece of paper. "Wärterin," he shouted. "She fed the enemy. She betrayed our soldiers." Burns turned to Daniel. "Get 2 men on the door. Nobody comes in without my say-so." Kessler and another soldier took positions near the entrance, rifles ready but lowered. Inside, Anna had risen from the cot, her face pale. "They're here," she whispered. Daniel crossed to her. "Stay inside. We'll handle it." She shook her head. "They won't stop." Burns looked at her sharply. "You know these people?" "Yes. I gave their children food when the rations ran out. They thanked me. But now they remember I helped the prisoners." Her voice trembled. "They think killing me will wash away their shame." Burns opened the door halfway. "This woman is under U.S. custody," he said firmly, in rough German. "You have no authority here." The farmer at the front spat at the ground. "You're protecting a traitor." "She gave your men food while our sons starved. She saved lives," Daniel said from behind Burns. The farmer glared. "Then take her with you. But she doesn't belong here." The crowd murmured in agreement, faces twisted with something deeper than hate, fear, guilt, hunger. The war had taken everything from them, and now they needed someone to blame. Burns raised his voice. "Go home. This is American territory now. Anyone who interferes will be arrested." A stone hit the doorframe with a thud, then another. Burns's jaw tightened. "Harris, get her to the back room now." Daniel led Anna to a small storage room at the back. Through the cracks in the boards, they could see the street outside. Anna sank onto a crate. "I thought when the Americans came, it would end." "It will," Daniel said, "but endings are never clean." Outside, a gunshot cracked the air. Daniel rushed to the front. A bullet had shattered one of the windows. The villagers had scattered slightly, but hadn't left. Burns shouted, "Hold your fire. No one shoots unless I say so." Minutes later, they moved out the back door into the woods. Kessler led the way, rifle raised. Anna walked between Daniel and Burns, her steps slow but steady. They made it about 50 yards before a voice shouted from behind, "You can't hide her forever." Burns put a hand on Daniel's arm. "Keep moving." By the time they reached the jeeps, the sun had dipped low, setting the trees on fire with light. Anna climbed into the back seat. She didn't look back toward the village. As they started down the dirt road, Daniel glanced at her. She was staring straight ahead, face expressionless. "They would have killed you," he said quietly. "I know," she replied, "but it wouldn't have changed anything." He frowned. "You sound too calm about it." She turned her head slightly. "When you've seen enough people die for flags, you stop believing that dying proves anything." Behind them, smoke rose from the village square. Someone had set fire to the post where she'd been tied. Burns looked over his shoulder. Looks like they're erasing their sins. Daniel's hands tightened, or burying what's left of their conscience. The convoy stopped at dawn near a bridge outside Landsberg, the air heavy with fog, and the feeling that the war was breaking apart in uneven pieces. Somewhere far away, surrender papers were being drafted, but here the guns still rested close to tired hands. Lieutenant Burns spoke with a captain, then walked to Daniel. HQ doesn't want her taken farther. Bigger problems than a nurse with a divided conscience. Daniel frowned. So what now? Burns shrugged. We process her here and put her on a transport to the field camp. Daniel looked toward Anna. She won't last long in a camp. Not our call, Burns said. Orders. Anna stepped from the jeep. Where are we? Landsberg, Daniel said. Near where you worked. Her face tightened. I never wanted to see it again. He handed her a canteen. Transport's coming. She took it, fingers brushing his. They won't believe me? Not the Americans, not the Germans. Maybe they don't have to, he said. Sometimes surviving is the only testimony left. She smiled faintly. You sound like priest, just a medic who's seen too much. They stood as the fog thinned, revealing burned buildings. A scorched Red Cross flag fluttered on a roof. Anna stared at it. I thought that symbol meant something sacred, a promise to help anyone. But everyone wanted it for their own side. Daniel nodded. A lot of people forgot. She looked at him. Don't let them say compassion was a mistake, Burns called, and Daniel helped her into the truck. They'll take you to Munich. You'll be safe there. She held his gaze. Safe doesn't mean what it used to. As the truck pulled away, she looked back once, before disappearing down the road. Kessler approached. You think she'll make it? Daniel paused. I don't know, but she's already done more for humanity than most of us. Later, he opened his notebook and wrote her story about the hospital. The prisoners, the woman tied to post because she refused to stop being human. That night, moving toward Munich, Daniel looked back at the smoking town. The world behind them was broken, but maybe something better could begin with those who chose compassion when everything demanded cruelty. If this story moved you, honor the forgotten souls who showed mercy when it wasn't allowed. Subscribe for more untold stories.